Nationalist Thinkers, Hyderabad Charter. I deem it a privilege to welcome to you all this symposium on Modi at 20, the making of a new India. We have a very distinguished panel of eminent people to deliberate on the issue, and we are indeed fortunate to have Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, Union Minister of Finance, the woman who is in the forefront is hosting in Ramchander Garu, convener Forum for Nationalist Thinkers, to come on to the dais, and Professor B.J. Rao Garu, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad, and Sri Jayaprakash Narayan Garu, former IAS officer, and Mir Nazir Ali Khan Garu, and Dr. K. Lakshman Garu, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. Now, it's my privilege to invite the Union Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman Garu. And now, I request Sri Mir Nazir Ali Khan Garu present the bouquet to Nirmala Sitharaman ji. Now I invite Dr. Padma Veerapaneni to present the bouquet to Dr. K. Lakshman. Come on to the dais to present the bouquet to Professor B.J. Rao Garu, Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad. I invite Dr. Krishna Reddy Chittadi, Assistant Professor, University of Hyderabad. Come on to the dais to present the bouquet to Jayaprakash Narayan Garu. Bouquet to Ramchander Garu, ex-MLC, ex-Bar Council of India member, ex-Press Council of India member. I invite Kumari Tejasvi to present the bouquet to Nazir Ali Khan ji. Please come on to the dais. Tejasvi. Preside over the program.
I request all the delegates and the attendees here to kindly be in the clear the sides of the dais. There also just little bit so that the dais will be cleared. Now, before starting of the program, I invite Monica Sunkaraji to kindly render Vande Mataram.
Mataram Sujalam Sufalam Malayaj Shitalam Sasya Shamalam Mataram Vande Mataram Shubhra Jyotsnam Pulakitayaminim Pullakusumitam Drumadalashobhinim Suhasinim Sumadhurabhashinim Sukhadam Varadam Mataram Vande Mataram Koti Koti Kantha Kala Kala Ninada Karale Koti Koti Bhujai Drita Kara Karavale Abalate Numaratu Bale Bahubaladharinim Namami Tarinim Ripudalavarinim Mataram Vande Mataram Tumi Vidya Tumi Dharma Tumi Hridi Tumi Marma Tvam hi prana sharire bahute tumi ma shakti हृदये तुमी माँ भक्ति तोमारी प्रतिमा गढ़ी मंदिरे मंदिरे वंदे मातरम त्वं हि दुर्गा दश प्रहरणधारिणीं कमला कमलदलविहारिणीं वाणी विद्यादायिनीं नमामि त्वां नमामि कमलाम् अमलाम् अतुलां सुजलां सुफलां मातरं वन्दे मातरं श्यामलां सरलां सुष्मितां भूषितां धरणीं भरणीं मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरम्।
जय बोलो भारत माता की
Already delayed with the program due to certain other programs where we got delayed. So we immediately start our program. But before the speakers start their speeches, I would like to introduce the idea of this program. Modi at 20 is being organized throughout the country by several organizations, including that of the Bharatiya Janata Party and other governmental organizations. This is being organized by Forum for Nationalist Thinkers. Sri Modi ji was Chief Minister of Gujarat for nearly 12 years, and then now 8 years of his Prime Ministership of the national level. So therefore, he has 20 years of administrative experience. In these 20 years, he has challenged every problem he faced, and he faced many challenges also, and he introduced several policies, laws, and then taken decisions which are very detrimental at the time when the country was having economic recession, where detrimental decisions have been taken by UPA government and the previous governments. Mr. Modi has corrected all those decisions, and with his decisions, I think today India stands very strong in the entire world. And we are proud that we have a good administrator like Mr. Modi. So this is a small introduction of this Modi at 20 program. And we have the organizers here in the state also at the party level, Mr. Sudhakar Sharma and Premraj Yadav. They are organizing in other districts. But here this is being organized by the Forum for Nationalist Thinkers. And we have amongst us a Vice Chancellor of Central University, Mr. B.J. Rao. We have Jayaprakash Narayan Loksatta, who had a vast experience in public policy, and he himself was also a legislator. And therefore, his experiences and his insight would definitely help us to understand what is really happening in the country on the economic front. Now, without wasting much of a time, I request the Vice Chancellor of Hyderabad Central University, Sri B.J. Rao Garu, who is a great academician and a great administrator, who is now presently the Vice Chancellor of the Hyderabad Central University. Now I call upon him and request him to kindly deliver his speech.
Namaste to all of you. Hari Om Tat Sat. I come from academic domain. I look at the country from that vantage point of view, independent of who is ruling the country. Now when I looked at Modi at 20, it struck me that it must be Modi at 2020, because I'm overwhelmed by NEP 2020 as an academician. So I almost connected this title to NEP 2020. I think it's not too much of a mistake because we are on the threshold of implementing NEP 2020, the brainchild of Prime Minister Modi ji. Now the topic is a very heavy topic in many, many ways. Firstly, I want to greet Madam Nirmala Sitharaman ji, the Minister of Finance, Lakshman ji, the MP of our constituency, Ramchander Rao ji, JP Garu, and Khan Sahab. It's a beautiful Hyderabad city where ideas take shape. And on this particular topic, I am somewhat overwhelmed because when I look at Modi at 2020, many things go through my mind. I look at Prime Minister Modi ji as an ideas man. First an ideas man and then perhaps a politician. An ideas man because he is a grounds up person. He looks at the problems at the very ground level, at the level where it can be delivered. He looks at the dimensions of the problem in a real sense, not in a theoretical sense. So after 75 years of journey, when India is looking forward to march into the future, I think he is the right leadership because in the time scale of the universe, in the time scale of the world, although 75 years is too small a blip for a country, the years to come now are strategically extremely important because we are a young nation, demographically and even otherwise, energy-wise. The way we strategize ourselves in the years to come, 25 years, 30, 40, 50 years from now, I think in the time clock of India, Indian civilization, these 50 years to come are the most important years, where the rest of the Western world is aging up. We are going younger. We are energetic. We are full of ideas, very, very deeply aspirational country. So if we get our acts together now for the coming 50 years with the right leadership, that is a Modi type of leadership, the Modi leadership, I think we will do certain things very well. Please mute the microphones, mute the mobiles. So I look at Modi ji as a person who looks at the country in a different perspective, not like a typical politician actually. Look at the examples of digital success we have. We are probably number one or number two in terms of digital penetration in a very short span of time. Look at our entrepreneurial activities now for the last 5, 6, 7 years. We have not done it in the past. So many interesting startup companies are roaring to go. It took almost 65, 70 years to realize this. Better late than never. In terms of delivery, direct delivery without leakages, I think we have done extremely well for the last few years. We used to talk very proudly of the leakages. Now there are no leakages. The person who deserves gets it. So these are ground reality successes. I do not want to reel out the economic indices in front of Minister ji here. But of course, post-COVID, if you look at all the indices, I think India is a shining star in terms of many, many economic indices. It is interesting globally that with such high diversity, we stay united and progress well. It is almost a miracle in a very theoretical framework. So therefore, all the credit for staying united, bonded, goes to our ancient thinking, where fundamentally we believe in certain truth which keeps us together independent of what we talk outside. So there's some deep binding in us which keeps us going, and in this kind of binding, leaders like Modi ji come in and they further strengthen it, they ignite it. So independent of some peripheral differences, we get connected. In fact, for the last few years, we are actually getting connected to the main problems of the society. I think it is this connection that is so important for all of us to cling on to and go further. I do not want to tell too many things. I am a very crisp speaker, and in this crispness, I want to emphasize that we must pay attention to certain very important ingredients that we are very proud of. And the ingredients are: how do we strengthen our sense of belonging to the cause of the nation? This strengthening to the cause of the nation, the Bharat, needs to become a lot more deeper. Why do I say so? I say so because we have almost not begun asking, what is that I can do for Bharat? The only relevant question, and we keep asking, what do I get out of it? For everything that the system does, what is there in it for me? That's the question which naturally comes up in our minds. We have not really begun asking, what is that I can do for this Bharat? The moment we start asking that question, I think many things will automatically happen, spontaneously happen, because that question has the power of getting things done. As a nation, ancient nation, we still have not begun asking that question wholeheartedly. I think it is in his leadership that question is getting sharpened. He in fact said so on 15th August. He said so directly, he also said it indirectly. So, in this great nation, when we ask the right question, we ask this right question collectively, then the right things will happen. Independent of the political spectrum, we should ask this question. Because this is the only question that is relevant for us now, for the 50, 60, 70 years to come. If we do not ask this question now, we will miss the bus. So as academicians, we keep analyzing these thought processes that the country is going through, the system is going through, the citizens are going through. And one or two very important take-homes are, we ask such questions that takes the system along through the process of dialogue, through the process of action-oriented steps, through the process of deliverables, etc., time-based deliverables, etc., etc. If each of us aligns ourselves in that mode, in whatever we are doing, doesn't matter. Whatever we are doing in terms of our daily duties, if we start doing this for the country, the Bharat, I think many things will happen, which I think not only Bharat is looking for, but the rest of the world is looking for. So this is actually the high time that we serve the right template for the rest of the world. We generate the template first for ourselves, the unique template, and then it is this template that probably will solve very important global problems. In fact, probably India is the only nation that will develop a growth model that is environmentally friendly. There is no other system in the world that is poised to think of a rapid growth model which is also environmentally friendly. So there are many, many such ideas that we must entertain in and generate actionable delivers and keep working on it with the motto that what is that I can do for this Bharat? The only question that is relevant. Thank you very much. These are the only thoughts I want to say. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I request all the members present here to kindly switch off your phone or kindly keep it mute, because while the speakers are speaking, it diverts the attention. So once again, I request all the August gathering to kindly switch off either or mute your telephones. Thank you. Now, we have amongst us Mr. Jayaprakash Narayan, who was also member of Legislative Assembly and founder of Lok Satta. He has championed the cause of electoral reforms, and we know how elections are nowadays. For a common man, it's a distant dream. It will be a distant dream in future. So he's also an expert in public policy and other economical issues. So now I request him to kindly address your gathering.
Esteemed Finance Minister Nimalaji, Dr. Lakshman, Professor B.J. Rao, Mr. Khan and friends. I'm the only one on the dais who is completely free to speak whatever he wishes. The Finance Minister, being a member of the Cabinet, is collectively responsible to the Parliament on public policy. Therefore, she cannot go beyond what the Cabinet says. And within the government, decorum dictates that she confines her comments or pronouncements to her domain, the Ministry of Finance. Professor Rao, being a Vice Chancellor, the head of an eminent academic institution, there is a natural academic restraint that position imposes. The members of the Bharatiya Janata Party ultimately have to follow the party's diktats. So I'm the only one who can say pretty much what I please. So forgive me for being very candid, because you don't expect anything else from me. First, I must especially congratulate and thank our Finance Minister. She is our fellow Hyderabadi. She and the Prime Minister have done a remarkable job in the face of the COVID pandemic, against tremendous pressure globally and internally, to spend recklessly, because countries across the world have spent 10% of GDP, 20% GDP. It became the mantra. The way they managed the finances of the country, even as they took care of the sick and the underprivileged in a moment of crisis, is a tribute to economic management of a poor country. I didn't have a chance to talk to her after that, so I would like to take this occasion on behalf of all the citizenry of this city and the country, the thoughtful people of the country, for that very balanced, mature, extremely prudent management, reconciling the needs of the poor on the one hand and the need for fiscal prudence and economic future of the country on the other hand. And I think we've done a masterly job, Nirmalaji. Thank you very much for that. The first time I met Shri Narendra Modi was I think it was in 2003. I'm not certain, 2002 or 2003. It was a Gujarat CII summit. He was the chief minister. I was invited as a keynote speaker. We sat next to each other. I was an unknown commodity. We were just briefly introduced. And because the chief minister was busy, understandably. He inaugurated the conference and he left. But his speech stuck in my mind. The first time I heard him, it was in chaste Hindi. It was absolutely on the point about economic growth. And it was not about Gujarat, it was about India. I remember vividly. I was struck by that. Any chief minister would like to sell his state, that's his job. We are not only a cooperative federalism, we are also competitive federalism. The states are competing for resources, for investments, and for growth. And that's the way it should be. But in that backdrop, throughout his speech, he talked about India and its future economic growth and what needs to be done, and placed his own state in that context. That required enormous statesmanship and restraint on the part of a leader. Either during that visit or some months later when I visited Ahmedabad, a friend and batch fellow of mine, Vijay Lakshmi, she was the chairperson of the Electricity Board, Gujarat Electricity Board. We traveled together. She told me the story of what happened with the electricity in Gujarat. Many people don't know. That's the reason why I became very, very attentive and respectful of Shri Narendra Modi's policies and his thinking. We all know electricity is the heart of industrialization and modernization. We all remember not too long ago, getting power 24 hours is a luxury unbelievable. The youngsters may not remember that. There was a time when we had no power. Even in big cities, there were 20 power cuts a day, several hours in a day, in sweltering heat also. And of course, there were no telephones. We were all used to that, our generation. We were all old people. So one day, the chief minister summoned the electricity board chairperson. He said, look, we must give 24-hour power in Gujarat. After discussion, they realized that you can't give 24-hour power for agriculture, because unless you manage the load distribution, it's not possible. So they came to the conclusion, I must give power to all sectors other than agriculture 24 hours. So what needs to be done? You must segregate the transformers and the distribution network for the agriculture from non-agriculture. You must meter agriculture, and you must, though you subsidize power in agriculture, you must impose some tariff. That people should know that if they consume more, they pay more. The electricity board people said, sir, it's not possible. He said, why is it not possible? Tell us what is the difficulties. They said, sir, 1, 2, 3, 4. He said, all right, give me the cost. What do you require? They said, sir, we'll come back again. A few days later, again there was a meeting. And on each head, what is the investment required, what needs to happen, what's the political decision to be taken? The chief minister was briefed. He said, done, done, done. You need this much of money. That money is allocated. Now, give me the timelines. When you are going to do how much? I have done my job, you do your job. He had regular quarterly meetings to review the progress, and Gujarat is the first state in India to deliver 24-hour power to all sectors except agriculture, way back in 2004-05. Now, that requires real passion and commitment and understanding of the detail, not speech-making, not drama. Because without electricity in 21st century, there's no economic activity. Without economic activity, there's no prosperity. No matter how much our hearts bleed for the poor, without economic activity, there are no incomes, there is no prosperity. Narendra Modi understood that. Without fanciful degrees, without fantastic pronouncements, without great papers, the common sense approach to managing the economy and society of the country. Even today, what Gujarat has accomplished, the rest of India has not yet accomplished. But we are on course. Learning from Gujarat, many states are trying to segregate. I've been hearing about that in Telugu states for a long time. Agricultural distributors, transformers from non-agricultural, you segregate, you do this, you do that. We've improved the power sector a little bit, but not much yet. And in agricultural power, he set up meters for every single connection. And remember, unlike in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, in Gujarat, even in those days, it was a drought-prone area. Much of Gujarat is very dry. Today things are better because of late it appears that the rainfall has generally improved in the country. I don't know, maybe we're lucky beneficiaries of global warming as a continent. It's too early to say, but it's possible. So Gujarat borewells, I remember in 1996 when I went there to monitor the parliamentary election as an official, 1,000 feet borewells were common in those days. For us, typically 300 feet. Nowadays, they're going deeper. But 300 feet borewell for agriculture is normal in our states. 1,000 feet, that means power consumption is higher. Despite that, all agricultural connections were metered. And if some people said, we don't want meters, the government said, all right, you can do without meters, but we calculate how much power is consumed for each agricultural connection. At that time, if I remember, for every horsepower, they discovered that 850 units is consumed. Therefore, we assume if you're not metered, you're consuming 850 units per horsepower. If you have a 10 horsepower motor, we will charge you at 8,500 units. It was subsidized power, but there was a charge. It took guts, it took competence, it took commitment, it took the willingness to pay a political price in the short term to promote the long-term good of the people of this country. And that is true leadership. Pampering people in the short term at the cost of the long term is the easiest and the cheapest and the vulgarest thing you can do in a democracy. It's the normal temptation. You want something, I give you today. Your tomorrow be damned. It's easy. No brainer. It doesn't require genius, it doesn't require brilliance. It is cheap and vulgar leadership. In the face of that, he could easily have said, no, I can't displease farmers, I can't displease this, I can't have meters, No. We need that kind of leadership. Whether it's Narendra Modi or somebody, Narendra Modi is not your grandfather, he is not your uncle, he is not my brother. We admire him because he is doing what we need as a country. Yes, is everything completely flawless? Of course, democracy is not flawless. Democracy has so many turns and twists. There are problems and challenges. Politics is the art of the possible. But within that, expanding the envelope and going as far as is practicable within the democratic constraints in an extremely poor country with an absolutely substandard public discourse, forgive me for saying so, it is a monumental challenge for any leader. Any leader. That's why we admire P.V. Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh for initiating reforms in a very complex situation and pursuing them. We admire Vajpayee ji for the extraordinary accomplishments of his. Just remember, until Vajpayee's time, a telephone was a luxury. By the time Vajpayee left, each one of us had telephones. When he came to power, none of us had this. Maybe one or two people had at least 16 rupees a minute. National highways, until that time our so-called national highways were no, we remember. And then lesser known but perhaps even more important decisions carried through consensus in a very difficult situation. The FRBM Act, Vajpayee's gift. The new pension contribution scheme, Vajpayee's gift. Not only did the union government adopt them, every single state, despite his not having a majority, was persuaded to enact laws on both. Narendra Modi, in many ways, continued that legacy. Has taken it to the next step. And that's the reason why we admire a leader. It doesn't matter who it is, which party it is. I remember another incident when he was chief minister. There was this agitation about Narmada. For long, Narmada, the dam must not be built, hunger strikes, this, that. I don't want to go into details. But to shorten it, one day when I met Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he was very distressed about this agitation around Narmada. He said, Jayaprakash, I'm very troubled. I said, what's the matter? He said, A monsoon-fed country requires dams and reservoirs. If we don't impound water, the country will be thirsty. Our fields will be parched. But we must protect the farmers who lose the lands. Make sure that they get a fair deal. I said, Prime Minister, you're absolutely right. You put it in perspective. Why don't you lead from the front and tell the country this? But Dr. Manmohan Singh was not in that makeup. He was more like some of us, a civil servant or an academic, very sober, low-key in the background. So he said, no, Jayaprakash, I want a favor from you. I said, what? I will constitute a committee if you agree to be a member of that. There's a Supreme Court case pending about the height of the Narmada Dam. And if you quickly make sure that there's a proper report in the interest of the country delivered, then we'll place it before Supreme Court, the court will take care of it. I said, Prime Minister, it's the second option, it's not the best alternative, but if that's what you want, we're all here to serve the nation. Then a committee was appointed. Within about 35 days, we surveyed every single family in Madhya Pradesh affected by the Narmada Sarovar project. And we gave a recommendation. And many of the arguments made earlier without any foundation, they were all exposed because every household was surveyed. And the Supreme Court allowed the dam height to be increased. I forgot all about it. I did what I thought was right. I was always committed to that. Years later, there was a conference in Mumbai on emerging economies. Very eminent people from all over the world, including the Mexican former President Vincent Fox and his finance minister Castillo, and several other heads of state, etc., came. Many eminent economists came. I was one of the listed speakers. Shri Narendra Modi was invited as Chief Minister of Gujarat to address. After he finished his address, we were all adjourning for lunch. And I was at some distance. It was a big, rectangular kind of an arrangement with about 70, 80 of us participating. So after he finished his speech, as I stood up, he kept shouting my name and came to me and gave me a big embrace. I said, Narendraji, there was no occasion for you to remember me because we only met once. And you had no chance of knowing me at all. I'm surprised. He said, मैं कैसा भूल सकता हूँ जयप्रकाश जी? आप इतना मदद किया गुजरात के लिए. I said, मैंने क्या किया? I have no recollection at all. He said, नर्मदा के बारे में? I forgot all about it. I never knew that he knew. But his commitment to his state was so great that he was following very closely what was happening in Delhi. And he must have got through grapevine and through word of mouth who was taking what stand and who was systematically pursuing the issue with evidence to do the right thing. We never talked about it. We never met. Years later, I forgot. I did not even know what he was talking about. He came out with that. I was astounded that most of the time when I meet people, I don't remember names. I must be very honest. You're focused at that point of time, you forget the names and faces. Nirmalaji, I don't know how you're going to manage, how you're managing now, but it's always a problem for me, to be truthful. But for a chief minister with such weighty problems, remembering somebody who had not even met him, and years later on his own coming out, you can see the quality of a person. What the leaders are made of. I remember when, because of this record, despite the many travails of Gujarat, we all know the problems Gujarat faced or the country faced. But despite all that, the people reposed trust in him because they saw some real stuff, real substance. I remember during the election, I think a few months before the election, I was in Mumbai. A very distinguished retired police officer, one of the most venerable officers of India, he was a Christian himself. He said, Jayaprakash, our Anglo-Indian kids, all of them are saying, Modi, Modi, Modi. I'm surprised. I said, if that's the case, you should be happy. If Modi is able to unite Hindus and Christians and Muslims for a cause bigger than themselves, it's a good thing. What many of us are forgetting is the mandate in 2014 was not for Hindutva, it's not for this region, that religion. It is for India and its future. The people across the country responded because they wanted delivery. They wanted change. They trusted this leader. I remember immediately after I became Prime Minister, I don't know, Nirmalaji, if you remember reading a story in newspapers. I was I was struck by the mood by that. A lady officer in government, I think a central services officer, she wrote her personal experience. I believe she and her another lady colleague, they were traveling to Ahmedabad from Delhi. They were traveling without a proper reservation. They were traveling as RAC, Reservation Against Cancellation. So, as you know, if you're an RAC, I don't know how it is these days, but in those days you can get into the train and you can get a berth only when it's confirmed. Now, it was not confirmed. There were two ladies. There were two berths confirmed in favor of two gentlemen. Very unassuming gentlemen, very polite in behavior. And when they discovered that these ladies didn't have berths, they promptly said, "Don't worry, you take our berths." When these ladies said, "Where will you sleep?" they said, "Don't worry." And they had these towels. They spread them on the floor of the railway coach, and they slept there. Who were they? Narendra Modi, Shankar Singh Waghela. I was moved beyond belief when I saw that. We live in an era where an ordinary MRO or an SHO or some other relatively not very high-ranking official, all the time what do? We throw about our weight. We show our arrogance. The commonest expression from public officials in India is, "Evartho maatladutunnavo telusa?" I'm sure all of us experience that, right? In such a society, you have two senior leaders did not even bother to tell them who they were, did not pull rank, and they happily gave to two ladies the berths that they had, and sleep is incredibly important, right? Whatever you do, if you can't sleep, chekak vastundi, tek vastundi, sometimes you become violent, angry. It's not easy. They calmly gave them the berths and slept on the floor. That is character. That is character. Now, it is these qualities that make Narendra Modi important for today's India. Because most of us were bred on the staple of socialism. When I joined government, I was a fiery socialist. Nirmalaji, I don't know, in JNU you were a socialist or not. I was, because without knowing much about it. Then I became special officer of Vizag Steel Plant. Then I discovered that public sector in India is the private sector of those in public office. Since then, I've been an implacable supporter of economic freedom, competition, and choice. And the state must limit its role and perform that role very well, not expand its role and do everywhere badly, which has been the case in India for the past 70 years. Now, what we have to learn through painful experience or learning, free to choose Milton Friedman or somebody else, Narendra Modi understood intuitively. As Varghese Kurian always used to say, a Gujju Bhai is by definition a businessman. So Modi ji understood how economy actually works. It doesn't require textbooks and Nobel laureates and fancy philosophies. If Nirmala ji followed all these Nobel laureates, fancy philosophies during the COVID pandemic, India would have been in deep economic crisis now. Common sense sometimes is a better guide. Not that you should not listen to men of learning and wisdom, but you can never substitute their judgment for yours. At the end of the day, your experience, your insights, your wisdom, your understanding must prevail. That is what leadership is. So we now are perched very well as a country. We have many weaknesses. I have been talking about India's deficiencies for the past 26 years relentlessly, shouting from rooftops. Most of you know that. Whether parties or leaders, whether I talk to Narendra Modi or Manmohan Singh or Sonia Gandhi or L.K. Advani or somebody else, what I say is exactly the same. I never change my message, I never change my style. I am mindful of the problems of India, the deficiencies in our politics, in our democracy. But today, there has to be only one mantra for the next 25 years. India must grow at 8% per annum uninterrupted, sustained. China accomplished 10% for 30 years, an extraordinary achievement. They may be our competitors, in some respects occasionally rivals, but we must admire what they have done. If you say that because we are democratic we cannot accomplish, it's nonsensical. China did not accomplish great growth because of undemocratic approach. Whenever China acted undemocratically, China suffered. The Great Leap Forward led to 20 million Chinese dying of starvation between 1958 and 61. Cultural Revolution led to the decimation of all their cultural treasures and the destruction of their intellectual elites. It is when they did the right things, build the infrastructure, decentralize power, build education and healthcare properly, promote skills, and after 1978, thanks to Deng Xiaoping, a great man, encourage investment, production, productivity. China took off. So democracy need not be a constraint. Yes, there are some democratic constraints. Sometimes you have to be patient. But fundamentally, democracy is not and should not be a constraint to economic growth. And India must accomplish this economic growth with democracy and freedoms intact. And we need leadership that clearly understands the desperate need for economic growth, because there is no better antidote to poverty. There is no better opportunity for prosperity. If anybody thinks growth is not important, we can distribute something which doesn't exist without growth, they're talking through their hats. What has happened in the past several years is, what as economists so beautifully put it in their lead story a few weeks ago, there are 4 platforms created. I cannot do better than paraphrasing what economists said. The first is the national market, GST. Of course, GST had teething troubles. But we all knew what life before GST was. Checkposts across every state border, hundreds of trucks lined up, and of course, we all know. If you are a commercial tax inspector at the checkpost, your life is made. And even 25, 30 years ago, some people who knew business, they told me, in those days, every truck, every day, on an average, in those days, paid 200 rupees bribe per day. Today, that amount would be equivalent to about 3,000, 4,000 rupees. I'm talking about 30 years ago, 200 rupees. I'm sure none of you believe that that 200 is the same as 200 today. Yes, GST had some initial problems, but it's a remarkable accomplishment through consensus, through cooperation. We did it the painstaking way. Years and years of negotiation, discussion, and all the opposition chief ministers or the finance ministers, they were the key players in making this happen. And thanks to that, we today have a national market. The second great thing is some things happening and some things we're making happen. The energy transition globally is happening, and India is now taking the lead. China is still ahead of us, but India is doing pretty well. Then the opportunity that's now created for a variety of reasons, supply chains. There's now a desperate desire across the world to not put all the eggs in one basket, therefore India could well have the opportunity. The supply chains. And the focus, the Modi government especially emphasized on certain sectors of manufacturing. Who would have imagined that a large number of mobile telephones, including the smartphones, will be increasingly manufactured in India? That was our dream. Now it's beginning to happen on a bigger and bigger scale. So that's the second big platform. The third is, of course, our traditional strength for the past 25, 30 years, information technology. And the fourth is a remarkable platform based on technology built to take care of the needs of the poor. The Vice Chancellor talked about leak-proof system. The other day, I was watching some channel, Germany, because now they have an energy crisis in Europe, thanks to the Ukraine war. Germany is finding it very difficult now to distribute whatever they want to give to the poor to meet the energy costs, because they have the capacity to only deal with 100,000 families per day, I believe. In India, if Nimalaji decides today, if the Prime Minister approves, by tomorrow you can send to 200 million families whatever the government wants to sell. So these four are very strong platforms. They facilitate growth. My appeal to everybody is, it's not about BJP or Narendra Modi or somebody. Narendra Modi will not live forever. I will not live forever. None of us will live forever. But this nation will endure. Our children deserve the best from us. My appeal is, you fight your politics. You vote for whomever you like in elections. At least I can say that as a non-party man. You all may have a desire to ask for your vote, you have a right to do that. But for heaven's sake, whatever you do not cut the nose to spite the face. Do not destroy our children's collective future because you are angry with somebody in power. The anger that you see in this country, the desperate desire to obstruct the good things for no good reason except politicking, is extremely self-defeating. The farm loss is a classic example. As a friend of the farmers throughout my life, I can say categorically, they were extremely pro-farmer. We did immense damage to ourselves as a country by pretending that they were not pro-farmer. Not only the politicians, but the media. The media is playing an extremely negative role, without focusing on what is right and what is wrong. Everything is about politics and politicking. Narendra Modi is not hurt. I don't think he has any acre of land. I don't think he cares whether the farm prices are good or not. The people of India are hurt. The farmers of India are hurt. The economic growth prospects of India are hurt. My appeal from this platform to every party and every media house and every intelligent citizen, if he is half intelligent at least, is to go by evidence and logic, not by emotion, shibboleths, or political preferences. India demands it. I will not take much longer. But now that the finance minister is here, I cannot resist the temptation to make an appeal about a few things. Very quickly, my telegraphic list. Nimalaji, apart from the 4 platforms you created and the commitment to the state's role and the understanding of the role of the market, there are certain dangers ahead. If they are not addressed or if the opportunities are not seized, to maintain 7-8% growth rate for 30 years is not going to be easy. That's why you're aware of that, but it's more for completion's sake I'm bringing these to your attention. First is the fiscal problems that some of the states and even the union are now confronting. Now, I don't want to go into freebies, revelry culture and all that, because you can never win that argument. What is a freebie, what is not? Your freebie is my welfare is your freebie. No, there's no end to this process. But we can agree on one basic thing, that you cannot borrow to spend today on current expenditure. If I borrow, it must be to add to the wealth of my children. Every family does it. Forget everything else. Have one basic rule. Don't go into what is a freebie, what is not a freebie. That's an unending battle. You can never win that. But I think it's a reasonable expectation that if it doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't matter. Over a period of 2-3 years, we will not henceforth borrow to meet the current expenditure needs. That would be adequate. And for that, we need to create an independent council. Some people talk about independent fiscal council, or you can make the finance commission permanent and give that authority and responsibility. These are matters of detail. But some independent body so that people cannot politicize. We are no longer in the Nehruian and Vajpayee era. If Modi says something, KCR will say no. I mean, that's political life, right? You like it or not. Therefore, unless you have an impartial, independent body with expertise and moral authority and legitimacy, it's very difficult to sustain it. Therefore, looking for where is my car, where is my room, where is my furniture, where is my C's camp clerk. So you forget the nation's purpose in creating new institutions. But it's a matter of detail. The second issue is a low-hanging fruit for the country, where not only are you going to do enormous work to alleviate poverty, but you're going to enhance productivity and create employment and generate foreign exchange, healthcare. After COVID, there's a phenomenal opportunity in the country because people are primed now. I don't want to go into details, but at a very low cost, you can transform it. 54 million people, 5.4 crore people are becoming poor every year in this country on account of inadequate access to healthcare. 5.4 crore people are descending into poverty in India every year. Poverty line is not a stagnant one. It's a dynamic process. People come out of it, people get into it. And healthcare is the single biggest cause of impoverishment of India. At a relatively low cost, I understand the fiscal problems. I'm extremely conservative like you and Shri Narendra Modi about money, public money, because it's people's tax money. You cannot be profligate with that. But at a relatively low cost, not merely union and states, annually if you increase about 30,000 crores for over a period of 3 years, incremental 30,000 crores per year, and improve the quality of primary health care, a family doctor of people's choice among a pool of doctors available within 10-15 kilometers, with a payment made on the basis of the services rendered but not on a monthly salary. There are ways of doing it. And tertiary care, because secondary care is taken care of by Ayushman Bharat, by expanding it. But tertiary care, public hospitals are in disrepair. Putting some money. You can radically transform healthcare at a remarkably low cost, and you can create millions of new jobs. You will reduce poverty dramatically. And you will enhance productivity. And if you do a few other things required to make India a much more hospitable destination for health tourism, as they call it now. India this year, many of you may be aware or not aware, I'm sure the finance minister is aware, India is expected to earn about $13.8 billion by providing healthcare services to people abroad who are coming to visit India for healthcare services. $13.8 billion. We can easily make it $100 billion in the next 10 years. We have all the platforms ready with just a bit of tweaking. It will be the next software for the country. It's a win-win-win-win solution. The third is agriculture. Just do one thing. I know we suffered setbacks on account of this sad politics of India, but I don't think much is lost, because many of those things the government of India refused to use the Essential Commodities Act anyway, whether you have a new law or not is immaterial. And nobody is stopping contract farming anyway in the country. Only thing is the monopoly of the agricultural market committees continues where states don't cooperate. It's their choice, doesn't matter. But compress the market chains. Allow retail chains, Indian or global companies, overcome the resistance and the old-fashioned notions, because today the farmer is getting only 25 to 30 rupees of what the end price is, what you and I are paying at the consumers. Because there's a long market chain. It's inefficient. We require retail chains to be able to compress the market chain, give the farmer a significant proportion of the end price, add value, better storage, and have first-rate retailing, and open up export markets. We can easily go for $100 billion farm exports. Even now we are doing about $30-35 billion. We can easily reach $100 billion. There is space there. India, incidentally, has the largest landmass under both school education and college education. You are an educationist yourself. You run a wonderful institution. But most children of India don't have the privilege of going to such institutions. Just to give one instance, 50% of kids in most of the states at the age of 14 to 18 cannot look at a watch and read in India. Read time. My watch shows now 6:52. 80% are able to say somewhere near 7 o'clock, but only 50% are able to say it's 6:50. In 2022, it's the absolute truth. It can be easily improved, and you have a wonderful policy. You don't have to spend 1 rupee extra. Just repurpose it, restructure it. These are the 4 low-hanging fruit. There are many more things we need to do, we can do. I'm sure when there's an opportunity we can discuss. But please go for it. Don't be halting. The country is ready. The young people of India want jobs and opportunities, and create a climate in which at least the labor-intensive, low-tech industries flourish. I'll conclude with this. There's one wonderful company called Brandex near Anakapalli, in Anakapalli district now in Andhra Pradesh. A Sri Lankan people they invested. 22,000 women from hundreds of villages in the neighboring area were employed in that one company. There's not a single woman from any one of those villages who wants to be employed doesn't have a job. We only have one Brandeis to talk about in India, or maybe another company, I don't know. We need in every district one such company. The labor laws, the infrastructure, the needless hurdles, remove everything. If you create, let's say, 20, 30 million jobs like that in these sectors which are labor intensive by encouraging large investment and large number of people coming in, the whole attitude will change. Because please remember, in all the private sector, organized employees are under 2 crores in India even now. Add another 2-3 crores, see the energy in the country, see the optimism, see the confidence. The poor will then feel we are part of this growth process. I see exciting possibilities. We have to do much more, but this much at least we need to do for the country. I'm sure with Sri Narendra Modi, his passion, his commitment, and his acceptability to the country above all, his earthiness, there is a tantalizing opportunity. We will seize that moment and make this happen. And much more needs to be done to make our democracy work, but that's the story for another day. Once again, I pay my tribute to the wonderful work done by several teams. It's not merely the Prime Minister, it's the whole political process, it's the Council of Ministers, and it's the civil servants, it's the experts, advisors, and ultimately the people of India who respond to these incentives and create productive processes and generate wealth. I pay my humble tribute to all these people who are giving an opportunity for us at long last, much belated opportunity, better late than never. I hope we will seize the moment and make a difference to this country. And the next generation sitting here 30 years hence will never lament about the problems of India and only look at the opportunities of the future beckoning them. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.